You're listening to the Golden Nugget podcast, a podcast designed to feel like you're sitting down for an hour a week chatting with a few of your best friends and learning how to grow and lean into all that God has called you to be. We love you so much. Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on our Instagram at the Golden Nugget Pod. Let's jump in. Hello and welcome back to your favorite podcast, the Golden Nugget Podcast. I'm your best friend and your host, Anna Golden, joined by another one of your best friends, Kenzie Elizabeth.
Hello.
Kenzie's been on the show before. This is your returning guest, so that's why we say a fellow best friend.
Yeah, that's the only reason why.
I mean, normally I'm introducing you to another one of your best friends.
That's why you kind of got that title today.
I'm introducing you to another one of your acquaintances, Kenzie.
You guys can just test the water, see how you feel. Let me know.
Yeah. Everybody submit if you think Kenzie's a part of the best friend club. Do you ever, are you one of those people that calls everybody your best friend?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, yes and no.
I once heard that like best friend is a tier and not a person.
I believe that.
And I was like, okay, yeah, I feel like I related to that more.
Me too.
But also I feel like as I get older, like when I was young, I was like, this is my best friend. And now as I get older, I'm like, I don't know. And it carries more weight.
You're like overthinking. Yeah, I live by it being a tier.
Sure.
I have like my two people that are like my absolute closest.
Like Macy and Dom.
Those are the two people.
Okay,
yes.
got it,
There's
right.
an ongoing thing of how I can't do a podcast without mentioning either one of them. Like,
and what I love about you is Kenzie, if you don't know who she is, go watch the last podcast. We'll link it in the bio. If you're like, who is this? It gives her whole story. But Kenzie's done like YouTube for the longest. And I was watching one of your vlogs this week because, as you guys know, I recently launched vlogs. And if you haven't watched them, please, I'm putting my blood, sweat, and tears into this. Please, someone watch it.
She's
anyway.
also humiliating herself in public, so please watch them.
No,
guys.
it's like I apologize to everybody. Half of the edits out of my vlog is me apologizing to the room before I put my camera up. Anyway, all that to say, I was watching one of your vlogs and I just love how you say their names like every single person's gonna know, but eventually they do.
People who watch my vlogs do know who they are, but yeah, absolutely. But I'm trying to be better about like just
You're
not
like,
assuming.
Dom always says, and I'm like, yeah, she does always say, because I've just heard so much.
At a different point in my life when Dom and I were like physically together all the time, she was in most of the vlogs. So people really do know them on the vlogs. Now when I go on podcasts, that's a little different. We're in different, you know.
I feel like I'm the opposite, that I'm like my husband Enoch, and people are like, we know who Enoch is.
Yeah.
Or I'll be like, oh, my husband, they're like, his name's Enoch. Or like my sister Liz. I'll say that when we're talking. You're like, I know Liz.
like Liz is one of my best friends.
Do you know those people who are like mom and dad? And it's like,
oh, hate that.
Do you hate that?
Hate that.
There's this guy I used to be friends with. He's like, mom and dad are calling me. Also, that's a very rich thing to say.
Is it?
I think so. It's like mom and dad are calling, like, you know what I mean? Yes. Like their mom and dad is mom and dad.
Yeah. They're the only two, because you kind of have to be a little self-centered to say that, as in like they are it. That's it.
Yeah. I've always been like my mom and my dad. Yeah. Anyway, all that to say, welcome back to the podcast. How you feeling today?
Thanks. I'm feeling good. Thanks for having me.
Do you want to talk about you walking in?
Oh my God, guys. I mean, do I want to talk about this?
But first of all, thank you for bringing La La Land. Such a gift.
Of course. So I texted Anna and I was like, hey, I'm going to get La La Land. What do you want on the way here? So I'm walking in the La La Land. You know, I'm kind of Santa at this point. Like,
I saw you get out of your car and you had a cute trench coat on. I saw your boots and I saw you through that little window. It's like, I literally go, oh my God, Kenzie looks so cute. Do I need to change? And so Enoch goes and he looks out the window to like confirm if I need to change or not.
I'm walking up and I just see them like happy. I'm like, hi guys. And I'm holding the drink tray and I move it up, I think, as I'm motioning it, and the drink tray just breaks in my matcha,
which is literally
everywhere. And all I see is Enoch there, and then I see Enoch moving to like come get me.
all he goes, oh my gosh, she dropped the matcha. And I was like, go out there. I'm like, you have shoes on, go get it. And I was like, you're kidding. He's
it's
like, no.
Crazy.
And none of it got on you?
No, thank God. And it was my matcha, and I accidentally ordered it as a large, and it was the right size. So
because when you brought it in, there was still some in there.
Exactly. Look at God.
Honestly, that's such a gift. Spilling coffee on you, like on your outfit or something, there's nothing worse. I used to use this face oil that was like herbivore. Honestly, Love it. It was just like $1 skrillion. It was like, maybe not anymore, but it was orange, and I would always put it on, and if like a drop got on anything, it got orange, and I was like, oh my gosh. No. And I just remember all the days that ruined. Anyway, we're not here to talk about that today, guys. We have Kenzie on the podcast today because Kenzie is an expert in all things hosting, setting a table. We talk about that a lot on this podcast, and just it's like honestly a form of excellence. You love people really well by the way that you set a table for them.
Thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted you to know that. No, like I love hosting. I've always loved hosting. I love how many times am I going to say set a table? Someone start tallying it. I do love like setting a table for people or like making people feel loved and seen. And I'm so fortunate that I'm in a place in my life where so many of the girls that I'm surrounded by love that too, which is like, there's nothing better.
I think it's kind of an age thing too.
Yeah, it's like the older I get, you know, it's like if I invited like an 18-year-old probably over to my house, they're like, oh, cute. But still, I love that they like take a picture of it. Yeah. Like that means.
No, and it's like a really blurry, like ultra Gen
and it's
Z
like
pic.
So zoomed in.
Yeah, and like that, yeah.
I'm like, you have no context. Like, tell the full story. Anyway, all that to say, I've always loved doing that. And we were honestly at a dinner the other night, and I've realized that some of my quote unquote hosting trauma is from when I lived in Los Angeles. You guys, I used to throw like the first time I did it, okay, it was just like a dinner party. I had a huge picnic table in my backyard in California. Honestly, this house was like dream house, had so many people there. One of my friends there, Steph, she like cried at the dinner and was like, man, I've always wanted a community like this in California. And I was like, this will be my life. You know what I mean? I will make community.
This is what God put me on this earth to
so
do.
I was like, every month I'm going to do these things called family nights, and it's just going to be beautiful and just God honoring. And so the next month it like got a little bit bigger, which was great. And I had all these like long tables. You guys, honestly, it was like a Nancy Meyers film. I had string lights all over our driveway. We never used our driveway as a driveway because past the gate there was like cement, which is great, and we parked our cars there, but it was like a gravel long driveway, and I set up long table through the whole thing. It was just stunning. It was like beautiful, candles everywhere, everybody's like laughing, having a good time, sharing stories. I think I even had a prompt for everybody. We're like saying what we're building for this year and things that God's doing in our life. Stunning. It gets bigger next time. It gets bigger. We can't do the table anymore. It's too much. And then slowly but surely, because so many people get invited, these parties like halfway through the night would turn into raves, and I'm having like an absolute anxiety attack. And
I
I'm
would
like,
give any money to go back and have been at these.
Oh, I'm
any
like,
amount of money.
I'm like, how did alcohol get here? I'm like,
There's a bouncer at the door.
I literally am like shutting it down. Like, it got so crazy. So then like the next time I was like, okay, we're not going to let this happen. I'm still wanting to build a community here. I'm just going to approve the guest list. If some people want to bring a +1, that's great. But +1s aren't bringing +1s. Okay. So I was like, we're going to control the environment here. The worship music is never going to change. Worship music is going to be going all night. It was for Thanksgiving. We call it Friendsgiving. I got like hundreds of Chick-fil-A chicken nuggets, and then had everybody bring a side dish. It was so beautiful. I had like I went to IKEA and got like runners for all the tables. I got so many more tables because I was like, we're back to the tables. The minute people are standing, it's a party. It's no longer a dinner party. So it's
Anna's
like,
rule is you must be seated.
Yeah, I'm like, everybody take a seat, okay? And I'm like, we're just going to pray as a group together. We're going to have these things. Everybody's going to write down what they're thankful for on these like long tablecloths that are all paper, everything. I think halfway through the night, so many people start showing up. People start showing up from the street. I'm having to kick them out. Someone tried to like light a cigarette in my house. I was like, I'm sorry, you have to leave. I don't even know who you are. It turned into like, I don't know how this happened every time. One of the tablecloths caught on fire. And so then I remember we were supposed to do one for Christmas, and I canceled it, and I had a worship night with about 5 people. So those were extinct.
Those are some of my favorite stories.
Yeah.
And I'm
crazy.
So upset that I missed that. Here's the thing, like Anna and our lives have really been parallel,
honestly,
or opposite. It's very bizarre. Like, she grew up in St. Louis, coming to Dallas. I grew up in Dallas, going to St. Louis.
Yep.
We lived in similar places. We had so many mutual friends, but we didn't know each other. Well, that's how we ended up meeting. But just so many different things. at that time when you were doing family dinners in LA, I was doing family dinners in LA that I was hosting.
And I'm sure yours were so much better.
No, mine honestly. At that point, I was like in college with like very minimal money, and I wasn't putting like I didn't like nothing looked good in that house. It wasn't a stunning production by any means, but we would do the same thing in college.
But you guys had the heart. The heart was there.
The heart was there. We would do like Christmas parties and stuff, but I was in Bible college, so like you couldn't do anything. And we would invite everyone that we knew, and they would come and they would bring like an alcohol. They would bring a bottle of like liquor as a thank you, or a bottle of wine.
You're like, get that out of here. We're in Bible college.
No, I'm actually going to be burned at the stake. You guys don't understand what I'm going through right now. You really don't.
Like, get it out of here.
And it's like every kid. I
understand the sentiment.
Every college kid is like looking over and they're like, oh my God. Because like you can go anywhere. With that being said, I got away with like murder kind of, so it's fine. I didn't actually. I got in trouble all the time.
Yeah, well, I got myself in trouble. I would just have such, like, I would have a panic attack halfway through every time. And then I had like a padlock on my door, and I'd just go to my room and lock my room. And I'm like, I'm just waiting for everybody to leave. And yeah, one time, one kid was like punching street lights, which never understood that. But then they're like, Anna, so-and-so needs your help. The police are here. And I'm like, I'm just thinking back earlier that morning when I was finalizing my worship playlist for my Friendsgiving. And I'm like, this is going to be stunning. And I'm going to keep these tablecloths and I'm going to remind everybody what they were grateful for because they're signing their names on it. And I was like, well, they lit on fire. So never can bring that back. Anyway.
It's so funny. Like the idea of you throwing these dinner parties that are going to be so beautiful and wholesome and great, and them turning into ragers.
The first two were stunning, and it's one of those things of like I hear this all the time when like churches get like bigger buildings or things like that, and people are like, oh, I love so much how it is now. And our pastor said something that was like so beautiful, and he's like, well, are you going to change when we get into the new building? And it's like, no. It's like, okay, well, the church is the people that it's made up by. If you're going to get weird, the church is going to get weird. And so that's exactly what happened to my dinner parties. As the bigger it got, the people got weird, so it got weird. So I was like, but the beauty, there's beauty behind it. I mean, there's people who like made like long lasting friendships and like things like that. And there was also some really beautiful moments, but by the end, and this is such a side note, I had a Siberian Husky. His name was Kevin. And he was my everything. And when I moved to South Carolina, Kevin now lives with my aunt. No, she lives with my cousin who's here in town, actually. So I get to see Kevin sometimes. But he needed like miles to run. Siberian Huskies love to run. Anyway, but I had him in California with me. And by the end of every dinner party night, he would find a skunk. Then I came to find out that on our street lived an actor skunk who was in movies, but he still had his glands. And he would literally cross the fence. Kenzie, this isn't even a joke. And he would cross the fence. And like by the end of almost every dinner party, Kevin got sprayed by a skunk. So then it's like, mind you, all this is happening. I'm wrangling people. I'm making sure everybody's okay. I'm like making sure my house is still standing. And now I'm making a tomato paste to wash my dog in.
Do you have this skunk's IMDb?
Could you imagine?
It has to have one.
It is somewhere. I also, there was a cat at the end of our street named Frankie, and he was in like a movie or two because they filmed a movie on the end of the street and like Frankie was in it, and his owner loved that. And so my cat Vern looked exactly like Frankie, and at one of our dinner parties, my friend Trey was like, look who I found. And it was like, what is that? And he was like, it's Vern. And I was like, that is not our cat. And then Kevin, my dog, loses it. Now they're chasing each other around the yard. And I was like, that was the definition of every dinner party had something like that go on. But all this to say, we have compiled, because honestly, through Kenzie, I'm back in my hosting era. I'm back in my dinner party era. And also like brunching, whatever time of day, do a great brunch, do a great breakfast. Who cares? It's your playground. We're all just living in it. And you have just given me a lot of great handles to like, if you're doing a dinner party, don't invite 85 people at your house.
It's a huge one.
Like things I didn't know at 21.
Yeah.
I was 21 doing that. I was like, I'm starting a church.
No, by the way, that wasn't a dinner party. That was a house church.
No.
Gone wrong.
I tried. Yeah. And I was like, Yeah, all we were missing was worship, which honestly some nights ended in that. Just me by myself, just trying to cleanse the house.
In tears.
Yeah, literally being like, Lord, you see me. You see my sacrifice.
I'm trying so hard here.
No, literally, I'm like, I am trying to be a light in a dark place.
These stories are they get funnier too. Like, as you know more and more people who are there, and as things come out, and they just get better.
Oh yeah, it expands. It just expands. But yeah, what a time. That's like giving me all the memories in the world. But we have compiled together, mainly Kenzie, because she's the expert at this. As you know, I've learned everything not to do, which helps me be some sort of expert in the wrong things. But we put together the 10 rules of hosting. So these are like 10 handles that you can use. And some of these are some things that I've heard from you that have helped me so much. My last dinner party was Valentine's Day. I did like a brunch and I followed almost all of these rules and it was incredible. Like Enoch's like burnt out from me hosting things because I'll just like have an absolute panic halfway through. And he's like, this is so overwhelming. But that one was like so peaceful and all the things. And I was like, it really was your handles.
You are also a host on your own. You've been
Thank you for saying that. But I literally, there were so many things I was like, okay. Yeah. But we'll dive into some of them. The first one is scheduling. What is your process of scheduling a dinner party?
I have a pretty intense process of scheduling.
I love it. I would expect nothing less.
Yeah, absolutely. We're like developing journals right now for a friend of mine that go into all of this.
Kenzie has an entire, what would you call it? Home brand?
It's a home lifestyle brand.
Home lifestyle brand. One of the points kind of points to honestly, all the points could point back to everything you guys release and come up with. But if you haven't checked it out, also, I'll say like a caveat, which I'll talk about some things too, like at the end, just like some handles. Maybe we should do an entire episode, honestly, for how to be a great house guest. Yeah. Because don't you know it? Also, Kenzie has an entire podcast called House Guest. So maybe you have something like this. But everything in your whole brand would be amazing gifts for like a dinner party. Yeah. Like if you're showing up.
Yeah, they're really good hostess gifts, actually.
So good.
I wish that I had this brand earlier before because I, as a customer, I would just buy a bunch of stuff and then have it on hand. Like when
oh my gosh,
especially around the holidays. But if I go, this is like a complete side note to
love it
stuff. But I used to buy in bulk Barefoot Dreams blankets from Nordstrom Rack.
Yes.
Because they're really inexpensive there for what they are. And I would keep them in a closet
and it's an everything. It's an everybody gift.
It's an everybody gift. And everyone loves a Barefoot Dreams blanket. And I would use them all the time. Mm-hmm. And it was the best thing ever. So like that stuff having on hand is nice. Completely separate from what we're talking about.
I've said that. I think I may have said this in our Christmas episode. Everybody, there's nobody that you can't buy a gift for. That's like one of my biggest pet peeves. Of like, what do you buy the person who has it all? Something. You buy them something. Like don't not give your boss a gift because you're like, oh, they have everything in the world, or like don't. That one person who you're like, oh, their husband has that big job. Like they don't. No, it's like intentionality and kindness. And I have an entire cabinet too of things. Yeah. We'll talk about your dinner cards and stuff in a minute. I was having a hard time even finding those because I bought like a ton of the family cards. I was going to try and put some here. I gifted them all.
No, I gift this stuff because it's my brand, but I give actual gifts all the time. Like, it's nice to have everything on hand. I have this like insane hosting closet too. And I have a part where I just have stuff on hand if I need something when I'm heading out to someone's house or whatever.
And it doesn't have
That's also why I brought Lola in today, because I was like, I was going to get flowers. I didn't have time.
And it doesn't have to be expensive. Like, it doesn't have to be something that's like break the bank. There's hacks to all of it. Okay, but back to our Bibles. This is our Bible for hosting. You're working on something for us. Is this like, are we jumping the gun?
No, this is fine. I mean, we're in early development right now, but
okay, love it.
Basically it's a journal that helps you plan out your entire dinner party. So this is the reason that I made that journal is because I have a system in place of what I do when it comes to dinner parties. Okay. So I'm like making sure I'm reading the schedule. Okay. So it's a little different because it's kind of bringing all these things together.
I love that.
But I start off very high level. I start off with a theme the more niche the theme, the better is what I've realized.
Okay.
It gets your guest way more involved and way more into it.
That's good.
I now have everyone dress up as something.
Which is so fun.
It's so fun and it's easy because right now this year I'm going through every single Nancy Meyers movie and hosting a dinner party for it. Like we've got Something's Gotta Give Tuesday. Don't forget Anna and Enoch. Because the other day I texted our group chat Anna and Enoch, which by the way I'm with them like every other day, and I sent her the Partyful link, which is another good hack. Always use Partyful. For invites,
yes,
because you
so
can
great
track
for RSVPs.
It's amazing. And I sent it to Anna and Enoch. She goes, "Did you mean to send this to Enoch?" I said, yes. I said, "Sorry, Enoch. Excuse my friend."
I feel like most of your dinner parties I've gone to have been all girls.
I'm branching out. I'm adding some like male energy.
Okay, I love that.
I would like to add that. So, anyways, I'm going all over the place. I'm a little loser.
This is great. You kind of bullet point every detail. You do like a bird's eye view of all the things.
I start with the theme. I plan the date. I send out invites 2 weeks before.
Okay.
When I have the theme, I have the general mood board and ideas, because right now I'm going through this series of doing every Nancy Meyers movie. Mm-hmm. It makes it really easy for me because I can watch the movie. I just take notes on the movie. I pick the menu based on that. Yeah. It's very simple. So I have that set.
For inspo, do you do like Pinterest?
Pinterest normally.
Like just Google or Pinterest, if you're doing a movie, you'll look up like pictures of the movie.
Honestly, I just watch the movie and I take notes. That's really the better way to do it because I need to pull like small specific things that won't be on Pinterest. So
and it gets you so excited.
Yes. So and it makes it fun, and I love like the smallest character in the movie to dress up as is the most fun. Like I do this for my book club as well. Like we read Bethany Joy Lance's memoir, and she's Haley Scott from One Tree Hill. I dressed up as Mouth McFadden for it to like host the book club, and he's
is incredible.
He's the MC guy, so it was just more fun. But I've gotten really into making my guests dress up because it makes them. I feel like you're like going into they say this like worship, like God meets your expectations. Like when you're this is like so blasphemous.
No, I love it.
But like I feel like in a similar vein, like when you do things like small things like that, you're just setting it up to not be like every other night. It's a little bit more fun. There's more expectation.
Yeah, it's not. It's like rigid.
Yes, yeah.
I think it gets people also like out of their comfort zone, and also when you're merging people together, it's an amazing icebreaker.
It is
icebreaker. Yeah, there you go.
And I'm like very pro merging different groups together.
You're so good at that.
I do
honestly.
it all the time. There's definitely friends of mine that I will not merge. I will be honest with you.
Sure.
I'll start naming names on the Patreon. Okay.
Everybody's not for everybody. Yeah. And that's okay.
That's okay. And they don't want that. So that's fine.
Yeah.
Like I kind of know who I can merge together.
I've learned that. If there's one thing I've learned, it's everybody shouldn't always be in the room. And that's okay.
And that's fine. So week of, I like to set the table as far in advance as possible, which is typically between 3 to 7 days before.
Yes, this is number 2. Do everything in advance.
Okay, perfect. So moving on to step number 2.
Yeah, love.
Do everything that you can in advance. Setting the table is the biggest one. It's an easy thing to do. It is a little bit time consuming. I also am pretty excessive with it, and I have a lot of different stuff, so I'll play around with it. It's just kind of more, it's like a creative thing that I like to do. It's fun. So I do that as far in advance as possible. I grocery shop days in advance. I will prep every single food item because 95% of the time I'm cooking. Yeah. So we actually have a private chef next week. Did you know about that?
Whoa. Do you just feel so at peace? Because
I'm like, this is going to be nothing. All I have to do is set up the table. Yeah, it's so easy. So I normally cook and I prep everything I can days before. I only leave the things for day of that I absolutely have to do that day. Yeah. If I can do it before, I will do it before. I'll even like prep, even if something as small as like a salad dressing. Like that's something small and so easy to do.
It makes such a difference.
It makes a huge difference.
With my brunch that I did, and I like followed all your rules, I set up the day before I set up my table. I know you set up like a week in advance. I just have cats.
Yeah, you can.
So I was like, honestly, the night before, because I even set up like all of my glassware. I was literally upstairs and I was like, God, please don't knock it off the table. I was just so anxious. But it made such a difference because I am like, I want to try this plate and this plate doesn't work. Like, I am the kind of person, I was saying this earlier on my vlog that's not out yet. You guys will see if you watch. So there's another thing. I was saying that like, I don't spend like a ton of money on clothes or like, that's not my like the splurge. I love house stuff, like glassware, hosting. I'm like, that'll always be like, if I'm gonna splurge on something, it's that. So I have like a pretty extensive cabinet of just things that I can go through. So I want to see every plate with every other plate, and then by the time I'm done with that, I'm having absolute panic because I'm like, everybody's gonna be here in 30 minutes. I just set up the table. So giving myself the space to also have fun with it, like the day before, gave me so much runway. And the night before, I was like testing some stuff. I like got a new waffle maker and wanted to make sure it worked, and I just felt so much like I felt so much better and way more set up when I did that.
And hosting can be very overwhelming, especially if you leave things the day of. Like, you're supposed to enjoy yourself. Like, for Anna and I both love home. That's like our passion, like home and hosting. So I love having the time, like me spending an hour or two setting the table and trying out different things is like an act of like creative expression for me. Like,
totally.
I love doing that. And I think when you leave everything to the day of, it strips you of all of the joy because you're just so stressed. And that's not how it's supposed to be. Also, day of, when it comes to hosting, I have a day of scheduled that I make myself as well. That's just dependent on that day.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I mean, mapping all that out and having everything timed and all the stuff. My little Alexa, I'll like wake up in the morning and be like, give me a timer at this time. So I know that like, okay, guests are going to be here in 2 hours. Now the quiche goes in the oven, or guests are going to be here in an hour. Now all the candles get lit. Like all those things. It helps so much.
Also, working backwards.
Good.
I know I'm going all over the place with this.
But no, this is great.
When it comes to like your day of schedule, I do it like every 30 minutes there's something. People also, I think when it comes to cooking for a dinner party, it can be overwhelming, especially when you have a bunch of hot dishes. Like, how do I make sure everything's warm and you don't have a double oven and all of these things? Work backwards, because that is how you will figure that out. And it is a little bit tough. There's a brand I always shout out called Host, Hauste.
Okay.
And they actually have like, they're essentially like ebooks that you can buy, and they will plan your entire dinner party for you, give you the schedule, give you everything, give you the grocery list, give you the menu, it's really sick.
Incredible.
They have different themes and stuff. So I would really recommend that, especially like starting out.
Yeah. Once you kind of, you start to get in the swing of it. Like there's certain things now that I'm sure you feel the same way of, like, you don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah.
But before it would have been something that you're like, okay, how long does it take for me to make this salad or deviled eggs or whatever it might be? That's like something that you just have, like a cake. I normally have like with my menu planning, try to have a good arc of things. Something that, this is like a side note that I've really had to release, is I was like the kind of person that was like, nobody bring anything.
Oh my God, same. And now I'm like, please.
No, I'm like, I will always make main course and a good side, a salad option, and then like maybe like a bread or something. But I'm like, for everyone else, I'm like, okay, I can let someone else bring a cake or let someone else bring or something like that. I used to be so crazy that I had to make everything by myself, and everything for me has to be from scratch.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And then so I'm like,
I'm making my own butter at this point. Like I've gotta,
yeah. I'm like, Nara Smith really challenged us.
Yeah. Actually,
she's literally like making her own gelatin. I'm like, exactly. No, everything she does, it's insane. If you don't know who that is, it's this girl on TikTok who's also a like Ralph Lauren model. she's
like 3 kids. She's 23 years old.
She's absolutely stunning and cooks everything. And like, now I know she like has a sense of humor because she cooks everything in like mega couture. Yeah. And you're like, all right, like the bar is set unbelievably high. Okay, so we've gone through 1, scheduling, so super important. 2, do everything you can in advance. Prep as much you can as possible. And then 3, your invites go 2 weeks out, and you use Party Full.
Yeah, I do use like there's certain ones that I'll use if it's more formal. Regularly for my own house, I do Party Full, but I do like mahjong nights a lot too. I'll do, and that stuff isn't like, I'm not like hosting a ton. I'll maybe make a drink and that's it.
Sure,
it's just we're playing games. But I use Party Full for everything.
I love that, and honestly, I love the interface of it all.
Oh yeah,
it's so nice, and then you get to see who else is coming, and
that's the other amazing thing, because as a host, you have no idea how annoying it is when someone's asking you who's all coming when you're doing a billion other things.
Wait, but that's like so good, because I've never had to ask you that. And I do ask.
So, and you need to know, like, I understand it, but it's like, it's just one of those things where it's like a billion. Well, honestly, if you ask me, I wouldn't be annoyed. There's just like certain things where I'm like, I don't know. Like,
no, but I understand it. And it's honestly, giving people as much information and less like the one thing that everybody should ask and will ask is like, what can I bring? And then that's the only thing is like subjective to the host, but like everything else can be in that little party full.
I think I think the best thing about party full is actually the fact that everyone can see who's going.
It's so great.
It's so incredible.
And you have your own little profile. And then all the tea for the whole event's on there. So you do that 2 weeks out. Mm-hmm. Is there a reason why you don't do like, you think 2 weeks is like the sweet spot?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I feel like if you invite someone to something like a month in advance.
Too far out.
You forget it. And then, 2 weeks. I feel like that's great. Okay. 4. This is like a not a taboo one. It's like, what are we talking to? What's taboo about hosting? But this is kind of in reference to my hosting trauma, keeping it at one table. And obviously there's exceptions to this rule. This is your casual everyday dinner party. Christmas, you're probably going to have multiple tables. There might even be a kids moment. There's like all those different kind of things. But for your classic dinner parties, you say you like to keep it 6 to 8 is your sweet spot.
Yes, because it's hard when you're hosting and you're inviting all these people over and then you're inevitably at one table. You don't even get to see the other people. Yeah. Like the majority of the night is spent at the tables. Like I have my dining room and then I also have like an outdoor patio that I'll host on. Mm-hmm. And even for Christmas, I just moved all of because I think I had like 14, 15 people there. And I moved tables outside and I just made one really long one versus separating in the rooms. When I love that. When I've done the ones separating in the rooms, that's what everyone says. They're like, I just wish we were all together, you know? Oh,
totally. It's like, I didn't really get to say hi to so-and-so. And then your dinner party ends up feeling like your wedding. Yeah. And it's like, do you know what I mean? And you're like, give me a sec. Gotta go outside really quick. And it's like that for me, even like hearing you say that, also it freed me so much. And I know so many people who listen to our podcast, like they are churchgoers and you have so many people in your life and you're just like connectors and you want I never want anyone, and I know you share this sentiment, like I don't ever want anyone to feel excluded or like it's an exclusive event, like you can't come. But I have realized like loving people well is giving them like personal attention, and then doing like 2 dinner parties a month of 6 people is way better for everybody than doing like 1 12-person one. Yeah. And so that's like it's both and even like the other day of doing like something smaller, I was like, oh, this just like frees me up to be like, I had like one-on-one attention with everybody and had such a great time, and we all got to like extend our relationships deeper, which sometimes when the party's too big, you can't like make genuine connection. Do you know what I mean?
I think it just depends on the objective.
Sure.
Because I agree. Like I like a smaller crowd. When I think one of my favorite dinner parties I've ever hosted was 4 people. And we stayed at that table talking until probably like 1 a.m. And it was a school night, by the way. So that was kind of crazy for me, especially. But we just had like the craziest conversation. And we always reference back to that. And it was 3 girls who came that like did not know each other. They met for the first time that night. And it was just so fun. Totally. But I think when it's more of like partying crazy, there's a time and a place for a 12. But I think for your everyday, more casual dinner parties, I would do 6.
Yeah, I like that too. And I think that plays into like inviting people and mixing friend groups. And if you like, I think of like the dinner party that you had for It's Complicated. Mm-hmm. And it was like, I maybe knew like 1 or 2 of those girls, but it wasn't like overwhelming. Like I met like 12 new girls at once. So it felt like you were able to like actually kind of talk, and it wasn't as uncomfortable. I think people feel more lonely. Yes. In a bigger space, and they're just trying to like find connection.
You know what I think was a good one that we threw together was the Kapari one we did at my house over the summer.
That was so sweet.
That was such a good one. We kept I also always have a Nancy Meyers playlist playing in the background.
Incredible.
You never know when it's going to be really crazy music and it's like actually the movie. And one of our friends is like telling this beautiful story. I think of how she met her husband. Yeah. It's actually a really beautiful, sweet, emotional story. Everyone's in on it. And as she's telling it, the music is somehow getting louder and louder. It felt like we were in a movie.
I literally was so captivated. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm hanging on every word. Yeah. But that literally is such a great example of like a beautiful night of people coming together who don't all know each other, and then just like such connections were made. I love it. Which I'm like, I know you love when I say this, but what you do truly is like a form of ministry, because it's...
I don't hate when you say that. Anna acts like I'm an atheist. No, I don't. I'm just kidding.
I said I know you love when I say this. I'm like, Kenzie, you're using that Bible degree. I'm like, you're using that Bible college knowledge.
I only got it from Bible college, like not God. Or like the other 20 years I had.
You're like, the whole time I was a Christian, but okay. Yeah. But it really is like Jesus made like those connections. It's like rubbing elbows with everybody, like being at dinners, like going to people's houses. Like it was so beautiful, like his time here on earth and seeing his connection he made with people, that he was just such a person like amongst us. And I think it's so beautiful, like the things that you would share across a table with someone, you won't always share like next to each other sitting at church, or like even someone in the prayer line, or serving next to someone on a Sunday. Like it really does taking like breaking bread with someone, locking eyes with them, understanding their story, and just like feeling seen, which I think is what everybody wants in life, is like someone who can really just like actually dive into their story and want to know more about it. And I think it's so beautiful. Like all those nights that we've ever had, like you literally leave like, it's like leaving a home group, like you leave like filled up. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's like you feel so like, oh man, we really weren't designed to be alone. Yeah. Like community is massive for anybody, even if you're like, oh man, I'm like struggling with the idea of church, or like after COVID or what that looks like. I think isolation is like such a lie of the enemy of like, this is better, protect yourself. Like, no, like being down with people who know you, sitting around a table, talking about the things of God, or talking about like what's going on this TV show. I think all of it's just beautiful to like connect people together, and you do that so well. So
thanks. Do you want to hear my crazy story about the word I was telling you about the other day?
Actually, please. Yeah.
Okay, guys. So I don't even know at what point this was in my life, but I know it happened. Okay.
And that's trauma.
Have you guys ever gotten a prophetic word that's kind of passive aggressive?
Sure. And I'll go out to say that that's not a prophetic word.
No, it's obviously not. And this one wasn't passive aggressive. I was just thinking about it. I feel like a lot of my college years, I would get words. I'll like listen back to the audio, and I'm like, you just wanted me to do this? I'm like, that was not God. Like, yeah. There's certain things, and I'm like, you know what? Honestly, go off. I don't care.
Yeah, like you pulled it off. So, yeah.
But it would have been my late teens, my early 20s. I get this word from someone who tells me that the name Kenzie means being a gatherer of people. And I'm like, wait, that makes so much sense. I literally am down together. The issue is the name Kenzie was not around when there were meanings to names.
Kenzie,
and
please.
I was listening to this and I was like,
what does your name mean?
No, I have no idea. I can ask.
Here, I'll look it up. You keep telling your story.
No,
I want to break it to you on live.
Yeah, please. I know that it doesn't mean that because I've looked it up since.
I'm sure. What if would you do right now if it did?
I would be like, yes, and that was God.
You're like, I take back it all.
No, but sometimes when people are giving words, they need to know that Google is available. You know what I mean? Because I'm like, I'll take it. Like, I do think that's one of my, I think we have like many purposes in life, and I do think that is one of mine, but it is just not true. Kenzie is a nickname, by the way.
It means the fair one.
So I'm pale.
And you go immediately to like tone. And I was thinking like, oh yeah, you're so just fair and balanced.
I would not say either. I would not describe myself as either one of those words.
That's so funny.
Is that Mackenzie or Kenzie?
Well, Mackenzie, hold on. This is weird spelling. Son of, oh yeah, this is like Kenzie.
It's like going to be negative.
It's Scottish. Did you know that?
That kind of adds up.
Does it?
It has literally nothing to do with why they named me that. No, but this person was just telling me in a word that they received from the Lord that Kenzie means gatherer of people. So maybe God redid that.
Son of Kenneth. Or fireborn. So not gatherer of people.
No, and obviously because the name Mackenzie didn't exist when they gave meanings to names. Like, obviously.
Wait, that's actually so funny.
That's hilarious. But honestly, I'm going to take it. I like that meaning better.
Honestly, I think they're just like, they were a little misguided. I once got a word that I was not supposed to sing in church, and I was supposed to do the flags. And she handed me a flag, and she was like, go forth. And I was like, And then I brought it, like, I think I brought it to like my worship leader, like my pastor. And they were like, yeah, just don't listen to that. And I was like, oh. And he was like, yeah, you know, like in scripture, it says that like there is wisdom and multitude of counsel, and you test and approve all the good words that you've been given, and you separate the wheat from the tare. And I was like, so this isn't like fact? They're like, no, it's not fact. You bring everything before the Lord. And I never forget like having a teacher like that. And they're like, if it doesn't fit, let it roll off. They're like, don't hold on to that. And I was like, oh, okay. I used to think like, oh my gosh, I had so many crazy prophetic words. And then I actually learned like what prophetic words meant. And I was like, oh, so we're doing it wrong. Yeah. I'm like, oh, so these are supposed to be like edifying and encouraging and not calling out my secret sin in front of the church. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So we'd said keep it at one table, and there are exceptions to the rule. Okay. Then number 5 is like your theme and decor, which I like love like a niche theme. And for decor, it does it hones everything in. Even if you can be like, even if your theme is around a dish or it's around like a certain aesthetic, but having that. And I think it's so much fun what you've been doing with like the movies, because it got me like giddy for ours when we did It's Complicated, because I'm like watching the movie and I'm like going to a thrift store and I'm like, I'm going to look exactly like Alec Baldwin.
She killed it actually.
And everybody dressed like Meryl Streep. I'm dressed like Alec Baldwin.
It had so much TikTok potential. I can't believe we did it.
I know, it was so good. But I think that makes everybody so excited. And it also makes it so much more fun, because sometimes when you're dressing up for a dinner party, you're like, okay, is it like formal or is it informal? Of what does it look like? But I'm like, if everybody's dressing up as a character, that's so much fun.
That's so true, because there's a dress code anyways. People are going to ask about things.
Totally.
And you don't have to go out and buy stuff. You just make something work in your closet. Thank God for me, I can make any Nancy Meyers fit work. And I just happen to have like the baskets, the garden baskets, and all that stuff.
If you own a linen top,
you're good.
And a scarf.
Easy. Yeah.
You got a Nancy Meyers outfit in your closet.
Absolutely.
I also am like, even if it's the simple thing of like, oh, for my Valentine's Day brunch, we did like a couples brunch with a couple of our couples friends. Like, gosh, how many times did I say couple? And we all just wore pajamas, and it was so much fun. Mm-hmm. And it's just like small little things, and it makes everybody excited. Even if you give like a color, or it's like, hey, these are like our colors. I think that's so much fun. And it makes everything really aesthetic if you're into that kind of thing.
Yeah, it makes everything look great. And I think something so specific and something that you feel is too niche, I think is the best. And that's where you need to go.
Oh, yeah. The more niche, the better.
Yeah, like you don't need a pasta and wine night in the fall. You need something else.
Yeah.
You need like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days or something.
What a movie.
You know, that's a good theme.
And it's like,
too.
how many butter yellow dresses?
Oh my God.
At that dinner party.
So many. We also, I don't know if it's on our site yet, but it'd be shopfriendofmine.com. We have a download coming. Actually, I think it will be up by this time this goes, of 100 niche theme ideas. So if you want that, you can just sign up.
Okay, yeah, we'll link it below, and share with us like if you've ever hosted a dinner party and you're like, this was the best dinner party I've ever hosted and this was my theme. Please let us know. We like totally want to know all that stuff. Okay, and then 6, which this is such a friend of mine plug because they are my favorites. Dinner cards / like conversation starters or games. This is such a game changer because no matter what, dinner parties can be so awkward. It can be your best friends.
Yeah.
And then there's a moment where everybody's like, you hear the forks and it's like.
They just stall a little.
Yeah. And it's like you hear like a knife scraping on the plate and everybody's like, oh. But if there's something for everyone to do, I have some of Kenzie's over here. I have product placement, guys. I know. Do you love that? But these are her nightcap cards.
Golden Nugget.
Please, honestly, I would love that. I will use it. I'll give you just restock my thing. These are the dinner cards, and honestly, they're like really easy questions up to like even some deeper ones, which I think are so great. I know another company that does like conversation cards or We're Not Really Strangers. I don't. Maybe this is a hot take. I wouldn't recommend them for a dinner party because sometimes I feel like they're too deep.
Yeah, that I agree. These are geared towards that. Like the dinners is supposed to be like, those are safe for work. You could ask anyone. Some of them are deeper. They're not too deep.
What was your favorite place to go as a child and why did you love it there? It's like that can go as deep as you want it to.
Yeah.
Phil jumping up on the back of this chair behind her is so funny.
You know, Dr. Phil and I have always had a special bond.
Yeah, he loves you. I'm about to call Enoch in here and be like, grab Phil. No. But it's like, so many, they're like lighthearted, but they can give the opportunity to get deep. I will say at you taking a picture with him behind you is so funny. I will say at my Valentine's Day brunch, we did like the relationship we're not really strangers, and there were some cards that was like, is this too intimate for right now? Maybe. So I would recommend these, and like the nightcap cards are
the
also
nightcap are deeper, and like I wouldn't play those with coworkers, but like
yeah. So it's like know your level. Yeah. But I think that the dinner cards, if you're hosting a party, or even you have the family cards, which are amazing for the holidays. I don't have any left because I literally gifted them to every single person on my gifting list because I love them so much. They're just questions like for families. So even if you're hosting a dinner for your family, still do something like that. I think that it's sometimes the people that are so around us the most and that we love the most, we can put the least amount of care in for, when it's like such a backwards mindset. I'm like, what is he doing? He's like looking at that candle. Like if he jumps in that candle, honestly,
he's not going to. He would never. I think with your family,
he jumped in my bath the other day. Which was honestly one of the worst moments of my life. I'm like literally naked and wet. I'm trying to like grab him. He's soaking. He's trying to run through my house. I was like, honestly, you keep going.
Actually horrible. Yeah, I think like your closest friends and family, you're not necessarily, especially family, you're not necessarily asking questions. You think you know everything about everyone around you. Honestly, I spend the most time with my grandma that probably any 27-year-old spends with their grandma. I'm going to see her after this. Like I see my grandma all the time, and I spend so much of my life with her, especially in Dallas. And I was playing because they're generational, so it's like sibling, parent, grandparent, whatever. I played with her and I was like, oh my God, there's so much I don't know. And I feel that way about all of them. Like it brings out, I was at dinners and I'm like, I'm so tired of like the same high school drama being brought up. I don't want to hear about this anymore. I just need something new. Like you get into the routine of conversations.
Can I just say, this is a caveat to all my folks in ministry who they go to church with the same people, they work with the same people, they see the same people every single week. Y'all, I'm sure there's so much you don't know about that person that you're like, oh, we know everything about like everything. We're with each other all the time. And it's like, okay, what if you guys didn't talk about the drama for a second? Ooh. Where's the friendship? It's like, where's the camaraderie? So I think it's
a huge thing.
It's such a great, like, this is such a practical thing. It's so great for gossip. If you struggle with like gossiping and every time you guys' friends are together, it's like everybody's talking about the same drama and the same person or the same situation. Or if you're like with your work friends and you're talking about your boss and like all those things and now like the room feels heavy. We've all had those moments. It's like, it's such a great filler of like, no, like, where's your favorite place to go as a kid? And it's like, oh, just bring some light in the conversation.
It breaks up like the normal conversation, and you could do these anywhere. Like you don't have to get friend of mine, just like any sort of like conversation card deck. Also, as a host, it's amazing because when you're bringing different people together, or even if you know them all, you're in charge of everything that night. You're so busy, and like you need to, be there, be present. But that's one less thing you have to worry about. Like you can walk over and they're already playing, and the conversation's flowing. You don't have to worry about leading that.
Totally. You know? We had this other game, the game that Enoch and I played on the Valentine's Day episode, like the couples game that we did for like that couples dinner party we did, and it was so much fun. Having a game or something to defer to, it just like helps break the room up. Shake it up, really. Okay, number 7, make something that you're great at. If you are cooking for your dinner party, it is not the time to try a new dish.
No.
It because there's nothing worse. And I've done this, okay? There's one time I had people over and I love making pizza. Like I love homemade pizza dough. I think it's like such an easy, like if you're doing a dinner party, honestly, I always tell this to guys. If you're having a girl over and you're going to make dinner for her, go to Trader Joe's, get the pre-made pizza dough, get the pre-made sauce, and just get a couple toppings. And
also very cheap.
Yeah, and it'll look like you put in much effort when it was actually pretty minimal, but it was just intentional. And so I was making a pizza and everything was homemade. And I like salted something twice accidentally because it was my first time making this certain topping on it. I can't even remember. And I just remember everybody was like, wow, this is so salty. I can barely eat it. And I was like, I'm literally going to throw up.
That would make me cry.
I was so devastated.
I would never say that to someone.
I was literally so devastated. I also like love the honesty. I will say the other day I did make a quiche. It was my first time doing this certain quiche Lorraine. And I'm the kind of person that, because I've cooked for so long, that I'll use a recipe as like a springboard. So I'm not going to follow it to the T, because I'm like, oh, I know this will feel better with this, or like I actually like that cheese paired better with this kind of meat, and da da da. So I started just spitballing, and then I was like, oh, quiche classically can be dry, so I'm going to double the filling recipe, and I'm going to put it in a solo. I was like, it took so much longer to cook, and I was like, it's ruined. It was the best thing I've ever made.
See, that's amazing.
But that's rare that it happens that way. I am literally like, do your most basic recipe. And if you're like, girls, I want to host my first dinner party, I don't know what to make, roast a chicken.
Roasting a chicken, let me tell you something. It's the easiest thing that you could do.
And
it looks really impressive.
1,000%. And not to be like, I tell Kayla this all the time, because she's younger than me, not to be like a 50s woman, which I would never aspire to be. But I believe every woman should know how to roast a chicken. I think every human should know how to roast a chicken.
It's very easy. Also, when it comes to recipes, if you're getting into cooking, you cannot go wrong with Ina Garten. Ina Garten makes everything so much easier, and that's like her critique. And I'm like, so let's just like really lay this down in defense of Ina Garten. Ina Garten is a teacher at the end of the day, right?
Totally.
She is
she empowers you.
She's a cookbook author. She empowers you to cook from the home. That is her mission. So her process, and when you listen to the book you'll hear, but she has someone on her team that like recipe test is, oh my god,
you're okay,
sorry. I'm like, am I okay? She has someone on her team that does her recipe testing, and she knows it's kind of like, she knows like she goes this person, and if they can make it, then anyone can.
If they can make it, anyone can is so crazy.
That's what she said. So anyways, I think she's done an amazing job at taking out all the things that are unnecessary and complicated.
I'm like thinking of the person in my life. I'm like, if
I can think of who you're gonna pick.
If they can make it, anybody can.
But honestly, top of mind, like the engagement chicken roast that she does, I make that all the time.
Is that what you made the other night?
Oh, so good. And that wasn't even like the best of it, because I was having some drama with my chicken anyways. It was really frozen for a very long time, and that was just
there's
really
nothing worse. That's another tip. Make sure your meat's thawed.
It was also thawing for, we don't have to get into the details.
You're like, I did enough time
against me. Yeah. It was crazy. I would look into any Ina Garten recipe. I think that that's the best. Also, cookbook-wise, there is this cookbook that is my favorite cookbook of all time, the Dinner Party Project book.
Dinner Party Project book.
The salad that I make, that everyone, like Anna's made it since, every single person that is
so
it's
good.
The best salad.
I keep that dressing in my fridge.
It's the best dressing ever. I crave that salad. Like, how crazy is it to crave a salad? It is unreal. So good.
I'm reading currently Housemaid 3. I don't know if you remember it, but
I haven't read the third one.
You haven't read it?
No, I read the first and the second.
You didn't read the third one?
I don't think so.
I have to finish. Everybody was saying the third one wasn't going to be as good as the first two, but I was like, I have to finish the trilogy because it's just there. I almost think there's a fourth, but anyway, side note, they like move into a new neighborhood, and she like, I'm not going to give the story away.
You're spoiling it for
but they move into a new neighborhood, and they go to a dinner party of like the neighbor, and she's like, in her narration, she's like, I never knew a salad could be so good. Like, this girl's like has like set the new standard for her, and she's like, even my kids love eating the salad. And I just thought of that like when you were saying that, because that's my favorite thing as a host, is to like blow people's minds of things that they're like, oh, it's just a chicken, or it's just, and then the best is like, what's the recipe for this?
The amount of people who go in and take a photo of my recipe in my journal, like always, because it's so good. And I got it from the Dinner Party Project cookbook.
There's nothing more affirming to me. There's nothing more affirming to me when like I love when the holidays come around, because I get influx of texts of like, hey, can you send me that you are like, one thing that I make all the time is like these certain chicken wings.
Oh, they're really good.
And I get all the time asked about like my wing sauce. And it's like, how do you make your chicken wings? And I'm always like, of course, I'll share that. I need to start. I talk about this like taco soup recipe all the time on here, and everybody's like, stop talking about it until you're going to give us the recipe. And I will. I feel like I should do a whole little, maybe because I vlog now, I can do like a cooking with me thing. It's so much fun. And if you're intimidated by cooking, it's so much easier. It's not baking. Don't start by baking if you feel like you're nervous, because baking is science. Cooking is fun.
Yeah.
I started by baking, and I do love it because it's just like I loved Ace of Cakes, and I wanted to make cakes that looked like animals, and I did, and it was so bizarre. Fondant tastes like crap, but it helps. All that to say, like, just start, like, go for it. Make like a 1-pan meal. Do like a soup. I always say, and maybe I can throw it in the caption or something. Every time I say I'm going to throw it in the caption, I can hear Enoch like editing this and being like, another thing in the caption. But like a soup recipe, so easy for a dinner party. Throw everything in a pot, let it cook, let it simmer. It doesn't cool down because you can keep it on a simmer forever. Like, it is the most approachable dish for a dinner party, and it's like, make like a cornbread or a bread on the side or do something like that. I'm a big believer in like, everybody should have something to like nibble on when they get there. So have like a cheese board, or put out some fruit, or have like a little something, snack, a dip, something like that, so people can start grazing, getting a drink, whatever you might have. So
for soups, the Italian sausage, kale, chicken, tortellini, whatever it is, the modern proper, that's the best soup in the entire world. It seems really impressive. It's the easiest thing in the world to make. Also, another thing that's really easy to make is their easy bolognese recipe.
Okay. The
easiest thing in the world. If you want to do a pasta, do that.
It's those, I'm like, soup, pasta, chicken. Chicken feels intimidating because we're in the United States and we've heard like every horrible thing about chicken. When I took a few cooking classes over in France, that sounded way more intense than it is. I was in France for like 2 weeks, and I signed up for a cooking class any of us could have gone to. But the chef was on a tear about how Americans ruin chicken. And he was like, you guys overcook it. It doesn't even need to actually be at that temperature. But like, your meat quality is so bad that you're so scared of salmonella that it's like ruined chicken as a nation. And I was like, whoa. Yeah. Okay. But yes, I'm not here to tell you to cook it under 165. Okay, you're not hearing that from your girl. But get a meat thermometer. Easy. If chicken overwhelms you, I grew up with a mother who was like, salmonella is actually the devil. So our chicken growing up was a brick. Throw that against the wall, you could hear it knock. Like, literally, you could assassinate someone with the chicken that what I grew up with. Okay, so it doesn't have to be that way. And so, yeah, get a meat thermometer. It makes chicken so much more approachable. There's also this last hack on this part. At Trader Joe's, this is super affordable too. There is a lemon chicken that has already been marinating. Do you know what I'm talking about? It's so good. It's in the meat section. You'll see it. It's in a little bag, and it's already been marinated in all the things. Pop that in the oven for an hour. Amazing chicken bake. Like, so simple. And I think that doing things like that is not a cop-out. You still made the chicken. Yeah, who cares? You made the chicken. Go for it. That's great. Okay. So number 7 is make something you're great at. Number 8. Get ready first thing in the morning, please. You guys want to know what I looked like at every one of those family nights? Disheveled. I probably set the tone. I set the atmosphere by the way that I looked. I looked like I've been picked off the bottom of somebody's shoe. I don't think I wore makeup to one of those events. And I literally was like, it just looked my worst. And you host how you feel. So
yeah, I used to make this mistake. All of these things that I'm telling that I say to do now are because I didn't do them at one point. Okay. And it showed. All right. So I, again, with going when you make your schedule and you work backwards. Yeah. You think you're going to have time at 4 p.m. to do your makeup for 20 minutes. You end up not having that time. Get ready in the morning. It's one less thing to worry about.
So, because you're thinking, and this was my thought, chicken's got to go in the oven at this time. Then I'm nothing in the kitchen. Well, you know what else? You're making sides. Well, the salad's not done. And then the silverware's not polished or something. And there's something else. Or like, oh, I didn't light the candles. Or I forgot so-and-so's joining us. So I need to make another place card. The time escapes. So it's like first thing when I wake up now for a dinner party, I'm like, get ready. Amazing. And then I love making little videos because I look so cute while I'm cooking.
Yeah.
Get a great apron. Feel good. Yeah. I'm like, also, that's like bonus. Get a great apron. Like, make it so cute. Invest in it. I love it. Do you guys do aprons?
We're working on it right now. We will. So.
Period.
Yeah.
I'm like, we're going to do a collab apron. Honestly.
Like, actually, I'm making an apron.
I'm like, now that you say that.
My brand.
Not friend of mine.
It's going to be red.
Honestly, I always want to do that for Carl. Like cooking with Carl, little aprons for him. If you didn't know, my cat is famous online. I don't ever really tie our quote unquote brands together because people assassinate me for having a cat in the kitchen. Okay. Lock your pets up. That's another rule. Okay. 8 was get ready first thing in the morning. Number 9, seating assignments. You ever know that term of like, we say this all the time in church, like, well, at least our church, like, clear is kind, like clarity is kindness. And I feel like it cares for people so well when they don't have to be like, where are you sitting, or where's this sitting, or is it okay if I sit here, or is this seat taken, or is like, did someone take the plate from this? And it's just having a little name there, it just makes you feel like I love it. I personally think it creates also, like, if you know so-and-so sitting next to so-and-so and they're going to talk about that one thing the whole time, it's like, put them on opposite sides of the table. Break it up. Shake it up.
You got to split the people up that come together and that are really close because your table is going to end up getting, like, it's going to start clicking up. Yeah. So you have to, like, if I know so-and-so are best friends, they're on opposite sides of the table. So that they have to talk to everyone else. Therefore, we're all talking. You can't do it. Like, there's nothing worse. Like, I even think about as people that, like, when I'm out at places that, like, I love, but I don't want to get stuck with. Yeah. Because, not that I feel stuck with them. I love them, but I won't be able to talk to anyone else. Like,
because it'll be just a consuming.
Yeah, and they're like, oh, good, it's just us. And I'm like, oh, I'm actually here to see everyone else. You know what I mean? Like, I want to see everyone. Like, and then it comes off
thank God you're here.
Yeah, literally. And it comes off as, like, very unfriendly. And I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to do here. So I like splitting it up because then you're able to actually, like, make relationships with other people. And even if they're not going to be your best friend or someone you talk to ever again, it's so, like, people are so interesting. Everyone has a story. Like, you have something to learn from every single person around you. Even if you're making that in, like, more of a self-serving way, like, what can I get out of this? It's not, like, it's really not about, like, using it as, like, a ladder. It's more about, like, learning in life and, like, content. I don't know. It's just, like, there's something.
There's beauty to to dig up from anybody's soul.
Yeah.
So I'm like, taking the opportunity to, like, I don't know, step out of your comfort zone. I think after COVID, there were so many just, like, skills like that died in so many people. So it's like, yes, go get the conversation cards. If you're like, oh, I'm not good with talking about, like, new topics or new conversations, like, go get something that's like a conversation starter. If you're doing a theme party and it's I don't know, this is stupid. Why is this the first thing in my head? I'm like, Finding Nemo. It's like, why are you guys talking? Why are you doing Finding Nemo?
Dory's on his way.
Yeah. I'm like,
how is DeGeneres at the table?
How does everybody dress up for that? It's like, so sorry, guys.
Everyone brings a fish.
I know. Oh my God. And everything you eat that night is fish. It's like, honestly, so tough.
I meant a fish in a fish bowl.
Oh my God. I'm thinking of, like, a fish on a spit.
No, that would make more sense.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, Finding Nemo is terrible. If you're doing, like, a Parent Trap theme party or something, throw it into ChatGPT. Like, what are some fun questions about this movie?
Oh, or yeah. Like, I use ChatGPT for a lot of hosting stuff, I'm gonna be honest. Yeah. I'll be like, what would make sense if I need help with the menu or something? I use it all the time. Last
night I was talking to ChatGPT like it was a friend.
Oh.
And I was like, hey girl, what day should I post my vlogs? If I post my podcast on Tuesdays. Hey, and I was like, I was fully in, and I was like, all I was looking for was an excuse of, like, post it on Fridays because, like, Thursdays would be a hard day for it to turn around for me because personally I need to edit my own vlogs because I'm a monster and I need to do it because I think it's all about comedic timing for editing. Anyway, and all I needed her to say was Friday, but she kept pointing back to Thursday, and I was like, I look over at Enoch and I go, oh my gosh. It was like last night at like 1 a.m. I was like, I'm going to need to finish this. And like my first meeting today was at 8:30 and it was like not going to happen. So vlogs are on Fridays. Happy weekend. Okay. Last one, best one. Because honestly, this is my fave. Be a host and a guest. Because the way that, like, there's nothing worse There's nothing worse to me than hearing like from those family nights that I used to do in LA. I still am friends with so many of those people, except for the strangers that just walked into my house that I knew no clue. And I hope they met the Lord that night through by way of free food.
I'm sure they did. It was a seed at least.
Yeah, a seed. I'd hope so. And there's so many of those nights that I'm like, I blacked out. Like I was just so anxious and so stressed that I never got to like sit down. I never sat down at any of those tables. Yeah. Like I didn't get to like eat the food and be like, oh my gosh, and like laugh and have fun. Only like the first two that were really small. But so build a dinner party. All this to say, build a dinner party that you can also attend. If every time you throw a party, you leave like stressed, or this is me talking to myself, you leave stressed, you're upset that like there's so many dishes to do, or like I was overwhelmed. I didn't get to talk to so-and-so, but I invited them and I wanted to see them. I want to lock eyes with them. And it's like all these things. Build the dinner party that you get to be the guest at. If right now, like you're like, okay, well, in my 1-bedroom apartment, I have a table with 4 chairs. 4 people. Amazing. Mm-hmm. And just like do the best with 4 people and make it something that you get to be one of the 4. Don't be the 5th that's like sitting on a stool on the side. Like also set the table for yourself, and it just makes it so much better for everybody else too, because everybody's coming over to your house to be with you too. Like I would be so bummed, and if every time I came over for your dinner party, I'm like, where's Kenzie? Well, Kenzie's in the kitchen, and it's like, Martha. You got him tied in biblically, you know. Yeah. It's like, Martha, sit at his feet, you know. Stop working in the kitchen. I remember Judah Smith spoke this message.
I know the exact one you're talking. It changed my life. Actually.
It's hard to be Mary when you're Martha.
Yeah, that actually changed my life. I think about that. I'm not kidding. That was a decade ago at this point.
Oh yeah. And I was like,
think about it all the time.
It is hard to be Mary when you're Martha, because if I'm so honest, like I think people would assume that I'm more Mary just because like what I do, and it's like, oh, you just like sit at the feet of Jesus, and you're like, yes, Lord. I'm like, no. If Jesus was in my house, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be like, you need anything? You got this? Is this clean enough?
Because, I got a water for you.
Yeah, everything. I'm like, were you hungry? What are you feeling? Like all those things, and just like sometimes we turn that way in dinner parties. It's so great now. Enoch's always like, he's like, sit down, and I'm like, okay, fine. And then we'll switch off if we honestly prepare everything together, but I'm more of a cook. And so we're doing all that, and then by the time we're like sitting down, he like doesn't let me get up and serve anybody anymore. So if like he'll be the one that's like, hey, can I get you guys anything? And I think it's always great to have like a co-host too. Like knight one of your friends and be like, hey, would you just like help me make sure everybody's like cups full? And then you just like build the culture in your friend group that everybody turns into the host once the dinner is like set. I think that's so beautiful. And so yeah, let yourself be Mary even when you're Martha at the dinner party.
You also set the tone. So if
Totally.
you are stressed and frazzled and you like it's gonna kill the night, you know, which might be why it ends up being a rager. You know? So I'm
literally like my little nervous energy is just like, I say this all the time. I'm like, nervousness is a spirit, and there's nothing worse, because being around someone with a nervous spirit, it's like driving on ice. They'll act completely out of character, anything to help stabilize themselves, and you're like, oh. So it's like anything, you're just like dancing with the devil. So yeah. Make a party that you love to go to. Have a blast. It should be pouring out in a community aspect, also should be filling your cup. So it's like, if you're like, oh, I can't host anymore because I always just feel drained and used, take a step back and be like, okay, who are the people that I'm inviting? Are they people that like fill me up too? Like there are times in life where it's like Enoch and I will set up a dinner, or we'll do something, and we know we're like, hey, this is like a younger couple, or this is like a young friend of ours that we want to pour into, and we know that like going into that. But I think
this is like us when we go to Chili's.
That's when we go to Chili's. Is so funny.
And I'm like, so what do you guys think?
But it's like, you know, like the balance of that. There also should be dinners that even you can host yourself, that they're pouring into you too. And that just makes like the circle of life of community just so beautiful.
Yeah, I don't know. I am just so passionate about investing in like the people around me, and I love hosting. I think what I really like at the end of the day is just gathering people together. In in every single like avenue of my life, I feel like that's like the one common theme. And
gather of people.
Yeah, so Kenzie means gather of people.
We're renaming it. So if your name's Kenzie, you're a gather of people too.
Yes, absolutely. Can we do that in like, what is it, Urban Dictionary or whatever?
I think you can submit anything to Wikipedia, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe that.
Totally.
No, you definitely can. But I just think if you are stressed and this stuff is draining you, I mean, also it's different love languages, okay? Like sometimes this isn't for everyone, but I would try doing it with these tips because you shouldn't feel drained at the end of it.
Yeah.
And invite the right people. But when done well, I really think that hosting is kind of like the great unlock to like deeper friendships, especially in your 20s and 30s and 40s, goes on forever.
Oh yeah, because it's the reality is now. And so many of my friends, I never really was like in the culture of necessarily like going out just because of who I am as a person, or I just wasn't really a part of my life path. But not to say like, I think like getting belligerent and being crazy, it's like, yeah, those are where you dip into things that are wrong. Yeah. But I mean, it's like, okay, my culture in my 20s was like, me and my friends would always go out together and then we go have drink and then we go dancing. And then it's like all those things. The older we get, it's like also we're not in college anymore where we're like forced community all the time. And then you build these deep relationships with people because you're in between classes or you're studying with them and you're doing all these things that you have to honestly create intentional spaces to have those deep relationships. And like the older we all get, it's like, yeah, we have to plan a couple weeks out in advance. Like that's just the reality of like growing up or building a business, or like people have families and some people need to get babysitters. And I think that this is just a way to like love people well and invite them into a space of like, I am at the age where I'm like, I would much rather have like a dinner reservation than to go out, or like, I don't know. I like concerts somewhat, but I'm like, I love talking to people. Like, I'm not going to be like, Enoch and I aren't going to call like up our best like couple friends and be like, let's go to a movie all the time. I'm like, no, I want to talk to you. Like, I want to know what's going on in your life. And I think it's just such a beautiful space. And you open that up so well in your own home. Like I've met so many people that I just adore over like the last month of just going to Kenzie's dinner parties.
I'm hosting something like every week at this point. Like I'm hosting a dinner party a month at least. But it's like we have book club. So I do one book club. I do one dinner party. And then there's like mahjong or something random that will come up.
You love mahjong.
We've got to get you into this.
I fear I'd get too into it.
That's what I'm hoping for.
I'm like running a tournament.
It's actually taking everything I mean to not. Like I have some things up my sleeves. No, like to host. I've got some events.
Okay. Love.
On my way. But yeah, it just like I genuinely love it, and I love just investing back into those relationships and also showing the importance that I place on them in my life, you know?
I think it's beautiful. Honestly, this to me, I feel like I'll come back and listen to this podcast or just like look at these tips, or even when I'm hosting, just because it's so great just to have little guidelines and they just have so much fun. And please tell us if you use these or if you're hosting something coming up. I'm like, this is so great for holidays too. If you're having the family over for Christmas, I love hosting Thanksgiving. It doesn't always have to look like ultimate stress.
Yeah.
That's what this is for me. So it's so great to have all these handles. Thank you so much for being on the podcast today.
Thanks for
As you know, I feel like we had like 10 golden nuggets, but if you were to give all of our hosts, a little tip to take home, what was like your golden nugget of hosting? You're like, this is it.
Okay, well, I don't know why I didn't think of this because I was thinking of my 10. What's my golden nugget? Like,
it's good. There's no wrong answers. I'm like, I made you come up with 10. Where's your 11th?
No, I'm trying to think of something that is not this. Like, okay, okay, I need to word this better.
No, it's gonna be good.
But it's something like create an environment. Okay, actually, my golden nugget of hosting would be you just need to create a warm environment. Like, you don't really need to overcomplicate it as much as we just gave 10 of these things at 15.
We're like, and you know what? I would have ripped this, but these are so expensive to make.
Yeah. No, they really are. It's like kind of crazy.
My assistant came and brought me 10 of these. She's like, yeah, that was like $50. I was like, what?
Wow. You sure? I like paper these days. I think at the end of the day, though, you really just need a warm environment where everyone feels welcome. Don't focus on it being so perfect. I think And older generations dinner parties are really kind of uptight and cold and stale, and now they're meant to be more casual and warm and welcoming. And like, that's really all you have to do is create a warm and welcoming environment.
That's honestly so brilliant. That was a great golden nugget, and you do that so well.
Thank you.
Like, I've never had like I've never had like an anxious thought going into one of your dinner parties. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be a blast. Like, I'm gonna have so much fun tonight.
Good.
You create that environment.
Thanks.
But anyway, guys, Kenzie, again, thank you for being on the podcast. Longtime friend, longtime co-host. I'm like, this is me and Kenzie announcing our official merge. She's like, our what?
I'm like, really?
I'm like, yeah, a friend of mine is It's like, oh, okay, that's crazy. But we're so grateful to have you on. Seriously, anytime you want to be on here, please. Anyway, we love you guys so much. We hope that this podcast was encouraging and it pushed you forward a little bit. And it was just a moment where you felt like you were sitting down talking to some of your best friends about some of the things you love to do, or maybe it's something that you're wanting to get into. Let us know. If you like hosting parties that you've hosted before, don't forget to subscribe and follow us on Instagram at the Golden Nugget Pod. We want to talk to you. We want all of your feedback. We love you so much. We will see you next week. Don't forget, I'm also posting vlogs. So we'll also see you on Fridays as well. But we'll see you next Tuesday. Love you. Bye.